Hey, kids! Hope the new year hasn't got dark and miserable yet, because if it hasn't already, it definitely will soon. Yeah. That's why we're here to cheer you up. Today, we're going to talk about monsters, fairy tales, and the inevitability of evil. Yes, that's right. We're going to talk about The Witcher. Today on the show, we have the wonderful Henry Cavill. Say hi, Henry.
Hello. Yes, this is Henry Cavill.
Oh wow, Henry, you sound different.
It's all that acting training.
He is a great actor, to be honest. He's great as Geralt. Oh my god, so sad that he's gone, but he's moved on to Warhammer. Woo!
Yeah, like even with Superman, when I first heard Henry Cavill playing Superman, a British Superman, but then when you actually see him in Man of Steel, you're like, yeah, he actually pulls it off really well.
Oh my god, yeah. And have you seen Archer?
Yes.
Yeah, he should play a real life version of Archer. He is
should.
made for Archer. Holy cow.
He looks like his Superman looks exactly like
Lol.
Archer.
Yeah, pretty much. Which one is stand by?
I have the high ground. Damn.
There we
There
go.
we go.
Gotta find me. I always gotta test this out. Yeah, he does look like a Superman version of Archer. James Bond style. But this episode isn't about Henry Cavill, and this is not Henry Cavill on the show. This is actually Josh. I know. What a surprise.
I know.
How you doing today, Josh?
Oh, good, thank you. As you said, it is a bit dreary out there in London, but we hope it's a lot sunnier where you are. And like, it's funny, my colleague who's in Brazil, where it's summer for them, she's like on the beach enjoying herself, and I'm like, yeah, rub it in, why don't you?
Yeah, no, I hate seeing unsolicited holiday photos.
Yeah.
Check out my wonderful holiday. Look how beautiful and pretty it is, whilst you're just here in your misery, with your soup and everything. It sucks.
Damn.
So, The Witcher. This is going to be an interesting one. I got to admit, maybe 2 years ago, I knew nothing about The Witcher until I played the video game. And it just introduced me to a whole new world of fantasy that is magical and Polish and amazing. So I guess maybe it might be best if we start with the story of the author and maybe a bit of the background of how it was made. Feel free to jump in whenever, Josh, because I was very nervous about this. I actually did some research before, folks. Ain't that crazy? Me actually researching stuff we talk about. Well, this stops us from saying bullcrap like the stuff I said about House of the Dragon. So, the author, Andrzej Sapkowski, was born in Lodz, Poland. It's spelt with Lodz, but my Polish friends happily corrected me at one point to say Lodz, so there it is. His father fought in the Battle of Berlin against the Nazis during World War II, and he is often credited as being the Polish J.R. Tolkien. Tolkien?
Tolkien, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you're right. Because I think what he's done is that he's put Poland on the map, especially with his Witcher books. And you do see that at times that you see like maybe an actor or a writer or a sports star who produces, well, a musician. Like, for example, Rihanna I believe she's from the Bahamas. She put the Bahamas on the map, especially with her singing. But I think to your point, like a lot of people got into like Polish lore, about the Polish mythology as well, and even just the learning about Polish history as well, based off the Witcher books.
Yeah, you're right. I could see how they put Poland on the map. By the way, I think Rihanna might be from Barbados.
That's what I was thinking.
But you know what? I reckon we're both wrong. I reckon she's from a third country you can't even think about. Here's a weird one, actually. I read this online. Missy Elliott was Rihanna's drill sergeant when she was in the army. They're from the same country, but I can't remember what. But yeah, also don't quote me on that. I just remember reading on the internet. You know the internet. But anyway, back to The Witcher. So, yeah, essentially, I feel like it did put Poland on the map. Because for me, a big thing about The Witcher is it breaks that Anglo-centric domination of the fantasy world.
Yeah.
Lord of the Rings, a British writer. Aragon, is that a British writer as well?
British or American, but it's still based off medieval Britain as well. Yeah, to your point.
Yeah,
and like you mentioned earlier, like Songs of Ice and Fire is still based off the War is written by an American author, but it's still based off the War of the Roses. so it is still based off medieval England.
That's a good point, actually.
And like, and to your point, like if you think of like fantasy, you always think of like, does it tie into like Lord of the Rings? Does it tie in with like King Arthur and all of that stuff? And when you think of it, you always think of people. I know the TV series, because everyone has like British accents in there, makes it makes it harder. But like when you play the games and you have actual people with like Polish, German, Norwegian, Irish accents, you actually start to feel that this isn't just like a fantasy world set in one place. This is a fantasy world set in Eastern Europe, and and you can kind of tell by like the different names of the places, based on their culture, the history, the names as well.
Yeah, definitely. And that, for me, that adds a sort of a cool element to the game. It makes it a bit more exotic and exciting. It's like going on holiday with a video game. Like, for example, think of some of the names in The Witcher, Radovid.
Yes.
When they say Peter as well, it's like Piotr. Like, it's just got a bit more of that flair in the way they talk about food in the game as well. You can get like dumplings and stuff.
Yes, yeah.
Not that that's an important part of the game.
Or the amount of vodka that's drunk in the books, the games, the TV series, like it's everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. Like in the book, I'm reading on the second book. Well, it's technically the third book, but the first Witcher book is just a compendium of
short stories. Yeah.
Then the second one, The Last Wish, that's kind of like the first one that everyone suggests. Then the one I'm on, Times of Contempt. Really good. No, just drinking vodka in it. What mediums or media of The Witcher have you come across? The video game, the book?
Funnily enough, like I come across like all of them, which is weird because
nice.
At first I remember hearing about like the Witcher game, the 2007 one, which was CD Projekt's, I believe it was their first game, and it was like, if you look at it now, even for the time, it was like a pretty backwards game. So like,
The Witcher 3? Or
no, the first one in 2007,
okay.
yeah. And like the issue, you could see like it had taken things from other RPGs. So like probably, I would say the main one would be like Elder Scrolls, some of the older Elder Scrolls, and you could see that it was still like not up to the scratch of like the other RPGs at the time. And funnily enough, I never finished the first game because it's like, I played the first game in like 2010. So then because it was already behind for 2007, then playing in 2010, it was way behind the times. Yeah. But then it was like just reading up on the universe. So like I then played the second game, Assassin of Kings, and then that really got me into The Witcher, especially the storyline that is in the game. The fact that you've got the twists and turns, the politics, you've got also the magic involved as well, and then when
darkness as well,
yes, definitely, and I think it takes an angle from like Game of Thrones, but also goes further into saying that no, there are no like dark corners when it comes to The Witcher. It actually exposes you to, like, if someone is evil, they're not going to hide any parts of how evil they are. They will show you from the worst thing you think this person can do, The Witcher will show you.
You with me, honestly. Exactly. And you know what? Picking up on that, what I love about this is that moral quandary, this idea of evil. Like, when I introduce this podcast, we're going to talk about the inevitability of evil today, because one thing that's really appeals to me about The Witcher is that moral quandary, this idea of evil. So in The Last Wish, or in a TV show in the first episode of the first series, Geralt of Rivia has this quote: "Evil is evil, lesser, greater, middling, it's all the same. If I have to choose between one evil and another, then I prefer not to choose at all." And like, for me, when I heard that, so I was playing The Witcher 3 a long time ago at uni, but then watching the TV series in the first episode, hearing that quote, what a great quote, because how often in the real world do we have to choose between the lesser of two evils? It's always a lesser of two evils. Like, look at politics, when people talk about elections, they're like, oh come on, both parties are the same, they're both corrupt liars, just one's posh, one's not, and like, it's always the lesser of two evils. And you know, a lot of people say, I'd rather not choose. It's kind of a reason for people abstaining from voting because they
Yeah.
just don't want to participate.
And like even to your point, the fact that we then rationalize that picking a bad choice or an evil choice just because it's not as bad as the other.
Yeah, we're
But
still
the-
allowed to choose evil.
But it's
really.
it's like it's still a bad choice to pick. And I think to your point is that how many times do we actually look if there's another way? Or do we just automatically think, okay, I've got 2 choices or maybe 3 choices, and this one will be the worst bad or the worst evil choice.
Yeah.
So therefore, I'll try and pick the quote unquote best choice out of the 3. But then, do we actually? And I think that's one of the things that The Witcher brought on for me is that do we actually think further and take it another step and say no? Is there another way to do this? And I think that's
Oh, in the video game, certainly not. There's always one choice. If only you could actually just choose in a video game just to exit the quest straight away. Like, no, I'm not making a decision.
yeah. And
See ya.
And I think that's kind of like Geralt's attitude. Like he doesn't want to. At times he has to, for example, his hands are forced concerning certain things. But then to him, and I think that's the main part of his character and also his moral compass is that I don't have to pick between 2 evils. I can find another solution. And like, not to have any spoilers, like remember when he's freeing King, what's his name again? Foltest's daughter from the curse.
King Foltest's daughter. From
He's the king of Temeria.
Was this in the books or the game?
It's in the first. It's like the prologue for the first game. It's in the books. I think it's one of the short stories, and it's also in the TV series. Remember when you had that evil-looking monster, right? That literally
They all look evil.
that lived in a crypt, and you had to literally lock it out of its own tomb.
Which was that the first series?
Yeah, first series.
See, I've got to admit, the first series was a bit patchy. Of watching. The second series, I did watch all of it. I just thought it was a bit crap. But
Yeah, like for that situation, Geralt could have potentially killed the beast and been like, you know what? It might be a woman who's been cursed, but you know what? It's killing people. I'm just going to kill her. It's the lesser of 2 evils. Letting her live will then cause more people to die. But then he put himself in harm. Literally, like some of the scars on his body you see in the later series is from that battle.
numbers, his works are heavily influenced by Slavic mythology, which you really see in especially the video game, but
Yeah.
you know, in the show to a lesser extent, because the names of monsters and stuff, they're spelt in a Polish style, like the vampires, I think, are spelt with
Dampiers, I believe.
yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
And some of the mythological names I've never heard of before. Maybe because I'm not familiar, but like a Striga, is that like a Polish word?
I think it might be. Yeah.
Really? And Braxa as well. Like, I just never heard of these creatures before. But then I'm not really a mythology nerd. But anyway, there's so much influence from Slavic mythology,
Yeah.
which again gives it such a unique flavour, doesn't it? Whilst because of the Anglo-dominated fantasy world, there's always dragons, there's always orcs, there's always elves, etc.
And I think to like your point, the clever thing he did was that the human beings who live So the main characters, so like the
Yeah.
Northern Kingdoms and also the Nilfgaardians as well. And you've got Sintra as well, and you've also got Rivia as well, which are in the middle. They have like a lot of lore based off Slavic countries. But then those which are alien, like for example, the language for the elves is I think a mixture of Welsh and also Gaelic, I believe. So he's basically saying that a lot of the influences from, and even probably the Skellig as well. Skellige is based off Vikings who invaded the Gaelic regions of Scotland and also Ireland, and then their cultures like merged together. That's why they have like Gaelic, Irish, or Scottish accents in like the game.
But that's so interesting that Andre would choose that.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I'm sure the Vikings also pillaged Poland back in the day before it was Poland.
I think he wanted to do it because I think maybe he wanted to have something different. And I think the key thing that I do like about his works is that he has like anything that's traditional, like Anglo or Irish or Scottish or Welsh, is seen as very foreign, and everything that seemed to be human and to be the nations within the world are set to be Slavic.
Yeah, but I guess that's why it's amazing, because you're getting that perspective.
Yeah.
You know, whilst I guess in the Anglo fantasies they use like the opposite for the languages of the other peoples. There's a lot of Orientalist themes for like certain characters, like the Dothraki in Game of Thrones. But then imagine Game of Thrones was written from like a Dothraki perspective, or one of the peoples that the Dothraki were based off of. So yeah, it's why this is quite a turn on for me, the Witcher series. Not in that way.
LOL.
So, as we basically touched on, they've been adapted into comics. It's been adapted into a film called The Hexer, which I'll touch on a bit later. And of course, video games, as we know. It's even been made into a rock opera in Russia.
Wow.
Like, what is a rock opera? Could maybe one of our viewers tell us? Because that's crazy. Well, Star Wars is a space opera.
Yes,
so I guess you could really just say anything is opera these days. So Andre wrote The Witcher on a whim, as he said, to enter into a sci-fi and fantasy contest for a Polish magazine called Fantastica in 1986. He came in third place, but received such widespread recognition and popularity in Poland, kind of like with One Direction and X Factor. Not even joking, they didn't even win.
Yeah.
But
the wanted one, but then One Direction were the ones who became more famous.
Exactly.
Yeah, that does happen.
Yeah, it's so crazy, isn't it? You don't have to win a contest to be winning the world. So, how do you think The Witcher made it onto the international stage, Josh?
I think I would say the video games put it onto the international stage.
Good, that is the correct answer.
I think like I did watch like because I was really, really into The Witcher, especially waiting between Witcher 2 and Witcher 3.
Oh, yeah.
So I did look up The Hexer, and because it had come up so long ago, and also I believe because it was also low budget as well, that you could kind of see like they couldn't go full out into like the CGI that you see in the TV series and the monsters and stuff. Yeah. But I think, like, to your point, the games are actually the thing that put it onto the map. And I think it's the second game, because the way that they made the second game, they made it different to the first. Mm-hmm. So one, you could play it on like your Xbox 360, which is where I played it. And I think they really worked on like the images and also the character design for the characters.
Oh, and the graphics as well.
Yeah, and the graphics was amazing. So I think they really spent the time between the first and second game to catch up with other game studios and even overtake them for the second game. And I think the key thing for the second game was like the storyline. I think one of the things that I would always say about Witcher games is that the storylines are very good, the twists and turns, and also your choices do matter. And that the choices you make can actually change the ending that you receive at the end of the game. And I think that was one of the first games I actually saw that. Like, I did see it, like I've mentioned on the podcast before, like Knights of the Old Republic, the old Star Wars games, that you could, based on your decisions, you could have two different endings.
Yeah.
But like you could have in Witcher 2, I believe, 4 or 5 different endings based on the choices you made throughout the
that's
game.
good. Yeah, because I like it when they do that in these RPG series where, you know, it imports your data over from the previous game and that affects everything. They kind of did that with Mass Effect, but it was a bit hit and miss, like especially with the final Mass Effect as well. It's just like the only difference was at the end there was a different slightly, like for example, they show Big Ben in London, and it's like if Big Ben's still standing, that means you achieved like the best kind of ending. If Big Ben's not standing, but they're just edited it out. That's the only bloody difference.
I think that was a synthesis of the one where you basically make humans and robots that are literally the same thing, which was weird. And I think the issue with, like, to your point with the Mass Effect one is that they built up all these choices and built up this whole franchise to just, I think, end it in a way that fans were just upset with. And I think
we should definitely do an episode on Mass Effect because I actually really liked the last one, but I could see why people were disappointed.
Like, up until the end, it's a very, very, very good game.
Yeah, I think so.
And I think another issue is also being off topic. The fact that
when do we ever veer off topic? We never veer off topic.
They kind of like forced like the multiplayer element into it. Because, you know, you had the whole like galactic readiness and you had to then play online to get the maximum galactic readiness. And you're like, but then you're like, what if I don't want to play online? Or if no one's available to play online when I want to play the game? Like,
yeah, I know, that's true. I quite like my solo games sometimes, so I could understand your point there. But yeah, so with The Witcher 2 and The Witcher 3, could you import data over? Did that have an effect on Witcher 3?
Because I never finished Witcher 1, I'm not 100% sure about that one, but I know for definite you can transfer your data from Witcher 1, from Witcher 2 to Witcher 3. But one thing that they do very clever in the beginning of both games is that, a few spoilers here, in the second game, Geralt is taken prisoner and he's being questioned by Roach, basically a guy who isn't his horse. He's also called Roach, who's basically a special forces for Temeria. He's
in Witcher 3 actually. Yeah.
He basically goes through and just basically interrogates Geralt, and there you can decide the decisions that Geralt made in the first game. And in the third game, remember when you sit down when you go to Nilfgaard and you go to see the Emperor, you have that guy who's his Minister of War who talks to you about, what happened to Redania, what happened to, Sodden.
The guy who wants to marry Ciri.
Yeah, so when he's talking to you and he's talking about like all the stuff that's happened in the past, that's when you kind of like, if you didn't import your data, you then could decide what took place.
Oh, well, I played The Witcher 3. I only played The Witcher 3, and I did not even know that. I basically decided the past.
And I think that is a very clever way to do it, because I know, going back off topic, that the Mass Effect, the way they did it was like, they had like this whole comic book thing at the beginning of like 2 and 3, that if you didn't play 1, you then go through the comic and then you select which one you want. But I think The Witcher did it better, because then it's literally a reason to be asked these questions. And like the guy was like, so I know you were around Sodden.
But they've integrated
straight into the game.
Yeah, I suppose that's more of a smoother feel rather than just fill in the blanks at the beginning. Here's a like document, fill in the blanks, and that's your past. Yeah, that's interesting. I'd have to give the second one a go actually. So just for clarity, CD Projekt Red made these games. In 2007 was the first one. 2011 was Assassins and Kings: The Witcher 2, and then Wild Hunt, as many people and many noobs such as myself played, that came out in 2015. Josh, you've basically been trying to say the whole time that you played it before it was cool. You're like a hipster for playing the first one from the start. But it's kind of interesting because CD Projekt Red, I hadn't really heard of them before The Witcher. Polish games development company, literally made out of the blue and absolutely nailed it on the big stage amongst all these big companies like Activision, BioWare, EA.
Yeah. And I think, funnily enough, they were doing like this whole documentary to prepare for like Witcher 3. And because they grew up in Poland during the Cold War and they were developed during the Cold War, they started off as a company that would literally pirate games. Because one of the funny things that the USSR did was that any media coming from like America, there was no like copyright infringement at all. And like, so literally you could literally pirate a copy of, let's say, Mortal Kombat, put your own sticker on it and start selling it out of a shop.
Combat Mortal.
You could even have the exact same name because they really wanted to stick it to the West.
Yeah, you don't have
that you
to.
could literally be selling Mortal Kombat and people could think, oh, this is a really good game, and not realize that it's an actual a game that's being developed in America. And that's how they started. And I think,
that's crazy.
and it's really crazy the fact that, and I would advise people to go to watch the documentary because it kind of shows like how they then were established as a studio, how they were then able to work. And I think one of the key things that they were able to do, especially with the first game, they were able to show that there was like a fan base for it. So then when they came to the second game, they were able to then, I think, were able to get like the publishing and also like the financing for like, I think it's Namco Bandai, so you know, the Japanese company.
Yeah.
And also Warner Brothers as well. Warner Brothers were a part of it as well, and they were both.
Right, so they got the big names in as
Yeah,
well.
and I think it was very clever. And the key thing for them was that they didn't sell anything. So only thing that I think Warner Brothers actually, or Namco Bandai, really helped with was maybe with like the publishing and maybe like the distribution as well. Because at times when you've got like these small studios who are trying to produce a game, they're like, oh yeah, so if we want to help you, you need to give us some of the rights to this. But they were able to keep all of them.
But yeah, they use their network to basically distribute and get out there into the big world. Because I mean, I don't know how like a company, I don't know how the games industry works. Maybe on the game segment with evil Lord Jeffrey, we could discuss that a bit. So an interesting thing that I read up about this is, the writer of The Witcher, Andre, essentially had very little to no involvement in the games. He sold the license just for a one-off price, for a one-off sale to CG Projekt Red. This eventually sort of came back to haunt him because he didn't have access to any royalties. So what's going to make you more money in the long term? So eventually he actually sued CD Projekt Red, and eventually CG Projekt, even though he didn't really have a leg to stand on because he did do a one-off sale back when it was too early, CD Projekt Red caved in eventually and reached a settlement because they wanted to stay on good terms with the
author,
father of the source material.
Yeah, and possibly the fans as well. Like, you don't really want to upset the fans. The fans are like, wait a second, you're not even giving the right props to the actual creator of the idea.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what, like the gaming industry and nerd industry fans can be like, they're all over the internet talking crap. So bad publicity, And there was a TV show called was it? Oh, I thought I put that down as a film earlier. Whoops. Oh no, sorry, I've just misspelled. There was a movie of The Witcher called The Hexer, made in 2002. Have you seen that?
I did look at clips online, but yeah, because I wouldn't say it was crap, because from what I was reading, the storyline is good, but it's like when you have like those indie films that don't have the budget, but if they had the budget, it would make it a lot better. So the storyline was solid.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I've seen some movies that have like incredibly low budgets, but actually really good.
Just quickly going off topic, I think they said the most successful low budget film was like the Blair Witch Project.
Really?
Because like it was like literally, I think it was like video cameras, like no like proper film set, and I think they made like millions off it. And I think the way that they did it was the fear factor that they used, so that they didn't need they didn't need the like camera angles, they didn't need the settings. What they did was that they used like cameras, but they just showed the fear factor, and that's what sold the film. That's
kind of cool, because they started basically, remember that whole thing with like horror movies where it's someone holding a camera, like Cloverfield, Blair Witch Project, Paranormal Activity to an extent. They started a whole sort of genre of like
they did
fear through it feels like you're playing a first person movie, like a first person video game. By the way, we should also do talk about some horror genres. We have been reaching out to our fans to come on board as co-hosts, and We have had some suggestions for The Fly and The Thing as well.
Oh.
We should definitely do maybe a overall episode on body horror. That would be cool. But let's talk about that later. So anyway, noodling our way back to The Witcher. And of course, you know, there was the Netflix TV show with our Lord and Savior for the Warhammer universe, Henry Cavill. I love you, Henry. You pushed the you put Henry leaving. Actually, hang on, I'll talk about that in a sec. So Netflix TV show came out in 2019 with Series 2 landing in 2022. It was renewed for a third season, but unfortunately, actually, they finished filming the third season, but Henry Cavill has now said he will not participate in The Witcher anymore because he's going to do a Warhammer show. Woo! Literally, Games Workshop, who make Warhammer, their shares shot up by like 15% when he announced that, because it just this is the point where Warhammer 40,000 at least becomes mainstream. So
yeah, because like I even know, you know, Vikings. You know the guy who plays Rolo in Vikings.
Yes.
He's playing a character in one of the 40k Warhammer games. Because I know they showed it.
Really? Was it Dark Tide, maybe?
I'm not sure. It's not out yet, but they did show like clips of it, like at the Video Game Awards, I think, or they did show clips of it like 2021, and I think I'll get Jeffrey to put it like in the description underneath the video. But yeah, it's like he's in it as well, because I think if you've got him in a video game, you've got Henry Cavill going into a TV show, it could really push the envelope when it comes to Warhammer, because you've also got the it might be the fantasy side of it, but you've got the Total War games, which are also pushing the envelope.
Yeah, that's true. I keep
like
meaning to buy
that got me involved with Warhammer because of the Total War games, because I'm a big Total War fan, and then just seeing the games and like how they've improved each of the games has really got me into the Warhammer universe.
Yeah, I'm gonna buy Warhammer 3 Total War at the end of this month, because I keep seeing on Steam it pops up when so many of my friends are playing it. Of course, I want to play with you as well at some point. And we can talk about the gaming segment.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to The Witcher.
Yes.
We keep zigzagging here. We're zigzagging. And, you know, he was great as The Witcher, Henry Cavill. Really, really acted out well. Felt very natural for him to be The Witcher. And he's a massive nerd, so even better, he loved the source material. And he also loves Warhammer as well.
Yeah, and like even to your point, it kind of seems like for Henry Cavill, it's like his two prominent roles. Fans are like, no, he shouldn't do it. He doesn't look like the character we think he should be. Like first they were like, no, Superman should be American. How dare you have a British actor be Superman? They then watch Man of Steel. Oh yeah, Superman is really good. Actually, he can play Superman. And I remember like when he was casted as playing Geralt, fans were like, how can you cast him as Geralt? He's too bulky to be Geralt. He looks nothing like him. He'll be terrible. And then he then is Geralt, and then fans are like, oh my days, he's wonderful.
Nay, shame to the non-believers. So, you know, we've spoken a lot about background and the real life stuff about The Witcher. Now let's get into the nitty-gritty lore. Let's take the gloves off. So, what is a Witcher? So, Witchers are taken in as children, and they are subjected to alchemical processes, the consumption of mutagenic compounds, and relentless and physical magical training to change them into to make them very dangerous and highly versatile against their vast array of opponents. Now, there's so many different skills that they have. Some of their skills can be like having cat-like eyes that give very cute night vision, to exceptionally increased strength, speed, reflexes, endurance, and the ability to tolerate poisons that humans can't. And this is what they do. They take certain potions to basically upgrade themselves biologically to be able to fight monsters. So like when he played a video game, you had to brew a potion first. You work out what monster you're fighting. Okay, I need this potion. You brew that, and then it somehow helps you, basically.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things I did like about the Witcher games is that
did like
that at times that you would have to do a combination of things to defeat a villain, or to defeat a monster, or to go down a path of a storyline. Like I think one of them was like for example when you're trying to kill like wraiths or ghosts, within the game, you actually have to create a magical barrier, which then when they come in, they then materialize, and then you kill them within that barrier.
Oh yeah, was it
And for me, like,
odd sign or something? I can't remember what sign
I'm
it
not
was.
sure it is. I'm not sure which one it is. Yeah, but for me, it's like my brother can attest to this. When it comes to video games, I generally don't read. I just press through, and then try it out. So then there's this mission in the second Witcher game where you have to fight these ghosts. And then because I'd skipped through everything, didn't look at what I actually needed to do, which is put them in a barrier and then make them materialize and then kill them, Geralt will just kept on getting killed over and over and over and over again. And I was like, what the hell is wrong with this game? And I was like, is this turning into Dark Souls type of game? And then I actually had to like check online. I was like, I feel that's so stupid now.
I know what you mean. I can be like that with games as well, like Leroy Jenkins your way in, like just charging in and button bashing. The Witcher, I feel like you need to know a lot of background. And there's certain parts of the Witcher game that I really love, but there's bits I just couldn't be bothered with. Like, what's that game, that card game they play at all
Gwent. I really love Gwent.
I'm just never bothered with mini games unless I have to do a mini game to progress the story. All the other stuff like the dice rolling in The Witcher, you could play.
Yeah.
I was just like, this is so cool, but I just want to play the story. Like, I want to play the actual. I didn't spend £49 on a game just to play a dice game in it. Like, come on.
At least, thankfully, it wasn't a paid add-on.
yeah. If it was EA, you have to pay extra. To get the dice.
Oh, the
cheating dice.
The Gwent pack, the Gwent expansion pack.
Look at my Gwent cards. They've got special skins on them. Yeah. Oh god, that's ridiculous. And it's cool. The story of the Witchers really appeals to me because it sounds pretty horrible. They're just kids taken from a young age and just taken by mages. Like the story here is that as basically the history of witches, shall we say, as humans settled in the north part of the continent, which we'll go into more detail in a bit, they had to deal with a vast array of monsters that inhabited the land and which humans were poorly equipped to deal with. To fix this, the northern rulers tasked their mages to create magic-wielding warriors to deal with the monsters for them. As a result, the mages carried out experiments at Risberg, where the hell that is, and the first Witcher was created. Unfortunately, the Witchers proved to have limited magical potential and were thus deemed failures and banished from the castle. So then begins the first age of Witches. So the mages essentially took these banished Witches with them and then continued to train them in a special castle called Morgraig, which sounds like a castle named after me. So this establishes the order of the Witches. The first 5 original Witchers then begin to set out on their task of hunting monsters. And eventually, at the end of this age, the order of the Witchers falls apart violently due to infighting. The second era of Witchers, or referred to as the Golden Age of Witchers, begins when the 6 schools of the Witchers are built. Each creates their own Witchers, so I presume this is where Geralt, the School of the Wolf. Yes. What are some of the other ones?
Cat, bear, I think owl or eagle. But I know that there's wolf, there's cat, viper. So I think the ones in the game that I remember is like bear, cat, viper. But I've forgotten the other ones.
I know what school you'd belong to. You'd belong to the School of the Vipers because you're a snake.
Damn.
And so within this second era of Witchers, the past tensions that tore the original order apart calmed down. There's a lot of camaraderie between the Witchers. And many monsters are hunted down. But then the end of the Golden Age comes, and this is in the 1160s. I didn't even know there was an actual calendar in the Witcher world, so maybe we could talk about that a bit later. But by the mid-1160s, the Witchers had been too successful. Monsters grew increasingly rare, and due to propaganda from the churches of the north and a distrust of the rulers, Witchers became the monsters in most of the population's eyes. They were hunted down and were attacked by various people in pogroms, which eventually diminished the Witchers' numbers greatly. So it's kind of interesting because racism
Yeah.
And social Darwinism really plays a lot in this, which, again, just like J.R. Tolkien in Lord of the Rings, Andre's really caught onto this as well. The way elves are treated, the way humans, the way witches are treated. And some, what are they called, subhumans, so like
dwarves, gnomes,
Yeah.
halflings as well. You've also got what are they called again? Doppelgangers are also a part of that group as well. And to your point, it's like I think that's where the Witcher, whether it's the books, the TV series, or the game comes in. That society is starting to realize: do we actually need witches? Do we actually need mages? Because they've created a world where they've been able to kill off, as you said, most of the monsters that scare people. And it's kind of like similar to like the X-Men. Like when the X-Men are like helping society and saving the world, they're like, oh yes, the X-Men, we love mutants. And until like there's nothing to fight, they're like, oh yeah, you're mutants, we don't like you again. And you kind of see that like in The Witcher, that they like them because they need them, but when they no longer need them, it's like, yeah, go back to your holes and keep away from us civilized, us normal folk.
Exactly.
And like the weird thing is, you have seen that like in history, where you've got, for example, you can even point to like America, where you've got like the Native Americans who helped the people who came to the Americas to settle in. And then you even got, for example, the different groups, the different tribes who, for example, who sided with the United States to gain their freedom, but then after the United States got their freedom, basically walked all over them. And you kind of see that like in the Witcher series, because like witches have actually played a key and pivotal role in the expansion of humanity within the world where the Witcher is in.
Yeah.
But it always comes down to, and it kind of reminds me of the message in The Dark Knight Rises, when they're like, oh yeah, we no longer need Commissioner Gordon because he's a commissioner for war, and we're now at peace, so we no longer need him.
We need to do an episode on The Dark Knight as well at some point.
And it's like that. You see that so many times. Like you even see with like soldiers go out, if throughout history, go out, they basically fight for their kingdom, then come back and they're like, yeah, we no longer really need your services. You even see it nowadays, which is really sad, that they come back and they're like, oh yeah, thank you for your service, but we no longer need you, so we'll move over to the side.
Yeah, I can see that, and it's difficult because like with the witches, when there's less monsters, they're less useful. So what is their purpose in life? How could they fit in with the rest of society if society's going to treat them that way? Very clear like undertones of like racism, also how people fit into society. In a second book I'm reading right now, a city Yennefer and Ciri have come to, any subhumans have to pay a certain tax. And it's quite interesting because they pay so many taxes that this dwarf who runs a bank thinks that does an accurate guesstimation that they basically fund the war against the elves, like the humans' war against the Scoia'tael who are hiding in the woods. It's just crazy thinking that basically they're using subhumans to fight subhumans, and in these cities the dwarfs are subject to pogroms as well as elves and everyone else,
gnomes and other non-humans,
and that special tax reminds me a lot of like in Nazi Germany, what happened with the Nuremberg laws. So you see a lot of probably what Andre grew up with,
or heard his father tell him, what his father told him, and also the history that he's learned. Like to your point, like throughout history, you could point to like Jewish communities in Europe who've had to pay extra taxes because they were Jewish. And like, I think if you like going into like the whole history of like the elves, like I was reading up the history before the episode, which is weird because the history, like the starting of the world and the history of the world in the Witcher universe is kind of similar to like most of the universes. Like you've got like the original people who were kind of like animal-like. So like in Elder Scrolls, you've got, those lizard people. You've got those cat-looking people.
Yeah, there's some
like it's weird characters. That you did actually have like lizard people in the Witcher universe. And then dryads and I think some other group of people, they lived on that world. and then the dwarves came. And no, the gnomes were also there. The dwarves
Let's
then
not forget about the gnomes.
the dwarves then came, and then the dwarves and gnomes would then live together, mostly in harmony, because they were
Little people.
and also like the gnomes were like people who liked commerce, and then the dwarves like industry, so they were able to then work with each other, because then one would like make the wares, the other one would sell it. They would sell it to each other. They would barter with each other. Then like the elves then came, and then when the elves came, because I think maybe because they had magic, because I think similar to like most universes, dwarves don't have magic in The Witcher. I think.
Oh, really? Okay.
Because like in
Did
a
not
lot of
know
universes, like you don't see anyone who's an elf
that. In Lord of
use
the Rings,
magic.
I don't really see.
Yeah.
In Lord of the Rings either. There's no. I don't really. Well, correct me if I'm wrong. One of our gazillions of viewers, but yeah, I don't think the dwarfs do.
Yeah, and I think
that's true.
it's like a common theme. Like dwarves can't use magic, maybe because they're too sturdy. So then, when the elves come, they then build large cities. They take over basically the whole continent. But then, linking into what you were saying about the monsters, which I really love about the world, is that the unique way that he's brought the world and how monsters got into the world is that he calls it like the conjunction of spheres.
Yeah.
That two worlds basically in parallel universes, then at some point in time they cross each other, and that allows people to jump from one of these worlds to the other. And that's how humans came, but then also that's where...
Is that where the Wild Hunt come from?
Yeah, the Wild Hunt come from another world, which I believe is the world that the elves come from. So that's why in the game, if you think about it, the Wild Hunt do kind of look elvish.
Yeah, a little bit. From what
But
I've seen.
they're a lot taller, and they seem a lot stronger as well. So it could be that a group of elves came from that world that they were from to the world of The Witcher, and then the others just chose to stay where they were before. And like, so when the monsters came, so did the human beings came. And then when the human beings came, they basically, because they, as normally humans have children faster and breed faster.
And we completely destroy that. Like,
Yeah.
we dominate the land and turn it
So
into
they basically whooped the elves. Like, you remember from Witcher season 1 that literally a city that humans are living in was a city built up by elves.
Yes, it is Sintra. Is it Sintra?
I think, yeah, Sintra is one of the places. Yeah. And like the sad thing is that to your point, a lot of the elves were either have to force to go into the forest, where some of them became Squirtle, or became like the
Which,
poor.
by the way, I love that Squirtle translates to squirrel. It's so unintimidating, but yeah.
And like, and I think the humans called them that because they would be in the trees and then be shooting them from the
Also,
trees.
they attach like squirrel tails
Yes,
to
yeah,
the
to the back
of
of
their
it.
hats or something.
And then the elves and the dwarves who then have to live with humanity have to then adapt to the way that they live. Like, for example, the dwarves are technically tolerated just because of like their industrialism,
their banking skills,
the banking skills, the forging as well. And I think also because they are also long-lived, so some of them go as mercenaries as well because of their stockiness and also their strength.
Yeah.
But then, unfortunately for the elves, it seems like they get the short straw and the short end of the stick.
Yeah, they're the ones that are most picked on
Yeah.
in human society, and
Yeah.
it's a human world that these other races live in. You know, they have to live in human towns which are run by humans, so
Yeah.
they're always at the mercy of the humans. So again, it's a lot like how a lot of minorities are treated in different countries, and you know, for example, how Jewish people were treated in a lot of Europe at the time. So again, you can see Andrei's influence coming from that medieval history from the real world.
Yeah, and just quickly,
Sure.
another thing that The Witcher always picks up on, which I was speaking to like my history teacher, because remember I played the first game and I was still at school.
Yeah.
So technically I was playing it at the wrong age, but no one really cares right now.
Damn.
That I was just like, were people back then mistrustful of people that they didn't know? And he said, yeah, like in the medieval times, because of like, and even earlier, like Dark Ages, because of the constant raids, because of the constant uncertainty that towns would sometimes invade each other. And like, even like the feudal system was basically based on if you had enough might and you had a claim to someone's land, you could literally come
Kill
and
them. Yeah.
take their land as long as you have a claim, and then the king agrees. And the king will also sometimes just agree, or the duke or the baron would agree just to like appease a vassal. And then so you could have times where people would get raided by bandits, raided by rival armies. So there was a huge distrust, especially like in small villages and towns, of anyone who wasn't from the town, because they could think, are you a spy? Are you a
Yeah.
bandit? Are you someone who's going to steal from us?
And it's,
So
not,
then-
it's not a very globalized world
Yeah.
back then,
Yeah.
is it? Unless
And
you
then-
live in borders with other language speakers, but then you just wouldn't trust them because
100%.
war.
And then that's kind of like, even before they know like Geralt's a Witcher, you see it in the video games. They're like who are you? What are you doing here? Type thing was very common, because they're like, if for example someone comes to your village you don't know, they apprehensively think this person's a threat, because technically if he's not a merchant, he's not a part of the clergy, then what's interesting about our
He's a
time?
traveling salesman. He's a traveling salesman.
And that's the thing, like the traveling salesmen, clergy, or maybe like merchants were the only ones.
Oh no.
Oh no.
Looks like we might have to have a little bit of a pause there, ladies and gentlemen. We have a fire alarm. Whoa! No, Josh, nice clothing change. Yeah.
You too, Morgan.
Yeah, no, I don't know how we did that in a split second. Not, well, I mean, if our audience are just audio only and aren't watching the videos, then they would never have known. Maybe we should have just been quiet. But anyway, back to The Witcher. A fire alarm didn't just go off, and that didn't just interrupt that video, and we didn't just record this a couple months later wearing different clothes. But anyway, back to The Witcher. So, what do you think about the future of The Witcher? And this involves the games, the TV show, the books. What do you think?
I think it is a bright future, like on the gaming side, because they have taken in in a different direction to the books itself, and I think they are trying to get incorporated more with the author as well, because like the companies, as we mentioned earlier, like CD Projekt Red, they got backlash from Cyberpunk, so now they're like, we became famous because of The Witcher. We need to go back to our base to refind ourselves and also reassert to our fans that we make good video games. So they've announced like they're remaking the first game. They are making, I think they're making like an online Witcher, possibly, I believe. And they've got like 2 other Witcher projects. So people are like, is it going to be maybe further down the line with a new Witcher? Is it going to be like Geralt? Is it going to be Ciri? But I think it does bring in like how expand the world could be, because we do go to several places. Like we go to Toussaint.
Yeah, I love that place. Toussaint.
We go to like the first 2 games are mostly in
Northern Kingdoms?
the Northern Kingdoms.
Yeah. It'd be good to see Nilfgaard, actually.
Yes,
Yeah,
actually that would be amazing as well.
Cool expansion, yeah.
Yeah,
Because
because
Skellig Islands as well. I mean, I guess you do go.
or even like Redania, because we don't actually go to Redania at all, because they invade. I keep on forgetting the kingdoms.
Temeria.
They've invaded Temeria, and they basically both armies meet in the middle. So like you've got the Nilfgaardian army who have basically swept through the south and are heading up to the north, and then you've got the Redanians who've come from the north who have swept down, and they're both basically waiting for the combat to re-engage and restart. And for those who have played the games, you then can decide what is the future of the northern kingdoms.
Oxenfurt, yeah, 'cause, like, what's that place? Novigrad? Like, depending who you
side with,
they take over. I like, from reading the books as well, I just love the whole progress of the war and stuff, like talking about Temeria and Redania ganging up, like teaming up to do a big counter attack against Nilfgaard, but Nilfgaard's just unstoppable. Like, they're just picking off all the kingdoms.
Yeah, and I think it's like the other kingdoms don't know how to do espionage at all. It's like the fact that you see in the game, and I think also the books, like Dijkstra, yes.
Redania, yeah, my bad.
But then, like the other northern kingdoms, like Henselt, what is his kingdom? Temeria, and the Eden, that's it, Eden as well. They basically are like, we've now defeated Nilfgaard. We are now at war with each other again, and now we've invited ambassadors from Nilfgaard to come over to the north and to engage and help us defeat our fellow northern kingdoms. And you're like, don't you think that this could potentially backfire, which it then does in the second game, where you find out that Nilfgaard basically paid like a group of witchers who turned them into like assassins and kill like the kings of the Northern Kingdoms.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I did not know that. I guess
And that's what leads to the and then that's what leads to the war, because they've caused like a huge destabilization within like the Northern Kingdoms. And like the fact that, why didn't anyone think about doing that to the Emperor of Nilfgaard? Like just take him out, kill him.
That's true. I guess because it's kind of like the kingdoms of the north are all like separate kingdoms with their own self-interest. And it's difficult to like unite against a common enemy without self-interest getting away. And from what I've read in the books, it's like some of the northern kingdoms, like we just can't, like we're closer to Nilfgaard, we can't stand up against them. Your armies aren't, the other northern kingdom armies aren't with us yet. They're just protecting their own ground. So we're just going to side with Nilfgaard and become a new territory of But going back to sort of like the future of The Witcher, because I know the TV show is coming up some point this year. Let's see, The Witcher series 3. What do you think of? Is it Liam Hemsworth who's replacing our gods, Henry Cavill? What do you think?
I'm not too sure, because like you know how his brother Chris Hemsworth kind of has like a British accent when he plays Thor, but then you're like, okay, it's a superhero movie. It's a superhero movie, and Thor really isn't British either. So if it's not the best accent, you can kind of get away with it. But it's like, can Liam Hemsworth do an actual British accent?
Well, it's The Witcher. It'd be like.
But the funny thing is, The Witcher is a Polish book, and you're like, why does Geralt have to have a British accent? But then you're like, because of like the English audience, you can't have an American accent, because then that kind of like breaks it. Because you're like, why would he have an American accent? Especially because there was no American accents during the medieval period.
I would have appreciated. I mean, I know it'd be hard to do, but I would have loved an actual fantasy in a different language like Polish, just to have that for variety's sake. It kind of adds to the exoticism. Like even reading the book, I'm reading the book in English. Stuff. The way they talk about foods that are like very much Eastern European.
With British accents. Yeah.
And just like they should just put this in Polish. Like,
and like what they could do is like, to signify Geralt is different, he keeps like kind of like in the game, they kind of have it like people from Skellige have that kind of like Viking Nordic vibes, and also have like you know the Irish accent. So like you know when you because you know the Skellige is based off like the Irish Viking settlers who settled into Ireland. So you have that vibe, and then you also have like
that vibe.
You also have like, it's weird because then some of the troops have British accents, like for Temeria, but then also some of the people have like other accents. Like when you go around the city and speak to people, to your point, no American, no Australian accents. And like when you speak to many people at different quests, some of them have British accents, some of them have like Eastern European accents.
Yeah, I suppose that's
which does add it does add, which is also weird. Like when you go to Toussaint, the people in Toussaint have the accents. But then the Duchess doesn't really have that strong of an accent.
Foreign accent.
Yeah, but it's not. It doesn't really match with the people of Toussaint.
Yeah, because I remember I had a Belgian flatmate who he spoke French, and he's like, I was talking to him about The Witcher and the DLC in Toussaint, and he's like, so many places like Corvo Bianco literally means like white something, you know. It's like very obviously Italian and very obviously French. You can see that influence. Whilst it's a bit confusing in the northern kingdoms because it's basically Eastern European culture, like Polish culture, Slavic culture, the food, the drinks. They always talk about drinking vodka in it and stuff. Which, you know, I love it because it's different, say, when you hear Game of Thrones, because it's very much themed on British culture, English culture, unless you're talking about the peoples from Essos and stuff. It's good. It's making me hungry thinking about all this stuff. I want a dumpling. I want some pierogi right now. So, not feeling too good about the future of the TV show.
I will give him a benefit of the doubt, but the thing is that because they went away from the books, it kind of gets rid of and also from the games, it kind of makes me feel like, okay, then they've lost the benefit of the doubt. Like if it goes wrongly, I think they could lose, and they might gain an audience, but then lose the audience they currently have. And like, especially with people knowing, like with the third season coming out, it's going to have Henry Cavill in it, but then that's his last season. It kind of has some fans thinking like, do I really need to see the third season if you're just going to replace him? And then it's also going to be really weird for fans. Like, okay, you finished and had a climax at the end of like season 3. If you're coming with season 4, are you going to pick up straight off from the story and you have someone who looks completely different?
The Australian Witcher man. Oh, you got a vampire problem? Yeah, that would be interesting. There was something I was going to say up to that ilk. Oh yeah, that was it. Did you watch The Witcher Blood Origin on Netflix? It's like a spin-off show.
I started watching it, but I didn't finish it, no.
Yeah, I mean, my brother watched it and he said it was absolutely crap.
That is what I heard, yes. yes.
And what did you think it was crap?
Like, the first bit I was watching, I was like, well, they do have interesting actors in it. But then, I think, like, one of the issues that I kind of have with The Witcher is that it kind of feels like you can't really get the setting. So the acting is good, the monsters is good, but you don't really get this. But for the TV show, but you don't really get the setting that this is in Eastern Europe. Like, apart from like
it too much.
Apart from like the names of the places and the names of the people, it still kind of feels like it's based in like a fantasy version of England.
That's a shame. They've really taken what I think makes The Witcher special, because I loved the game, because the game, although it was in English, you know, the names, the culture was kind of there, and just the folklore, like the monsters, some of them I hadn't heard of, like the way they spell vampire as well. I was like, why are they spelling vampire? And I was like, oh wait, that's how they spell vampire, and in that part of the way that Andrzej Sapkowski's from.
And like even like some of the NPCs had Eastern European accents or had like
well, Nilfgaard sounded sort of Germanic, really. From the book, that's sort of the impression I get. The way the names are structured as well, like,
and also the coloring of their clothes. So like Redania is definitely Poland because of the white
red,
and red of Poland.
Radomir is a Polish, well, kind of a Polish name.
And the fact it's called Redania as well, and like Nilfgaard, and it's it's definitely the Holy Roman Empire, because it's an empire, and the Holy Roman Empire was emblemed in gold and black. That was
really?
so that's what it is, and it's like, and then you also see that the fact that you don't really know what Edirne is and also the other places, but you kind of do see like the Holy Roman Empire, especially in their clothing in the video game. Especially,
it came across as more like Tudor clothing, like wraps and puffy. Well, for Nilfgaard anyway, that's the sort of impression I got of the clothing, mixed with like medieval knight sort of clothing, kind of like a hybrid between the two. That's what I felt. I did find it interesting as well, like, they use modern terms to describe stuff in it, like warfare. For example, Temeria has special forces. Dijkstra is the head of Redanian intelligence.
Yes.
In the medieval times, and like, it's just like spy master, or men who have earned their salt in war. They're not
or vanguard or something like that.
Yeah, you wouldn't have these like modern phrases for warfare and government, which, you know, I find kind of interesting, but I feel it's a little bit out of place. The only criticism I've got of the books, and therefore the video game as well, just these words seem too modern for.
I think it's also the translation. I think could be the issue, because it's translated from Polish into English.
That's a good point. Yeah, fair point. It could be like a translation thing.
Quick question from me: what do you want? Because from that they're remaking the first game, from the two other games, what do you want from the Witcher universe? What do you want it to be about? What do you want the setting to be?
I'd like to see more stuff to do with the elves and the dwarfs to an extent as well, because I think the whole story of the elves is quite interesting. It's such a fresh spin compared to Lord of the Rings, where, you know, the elves are just another race. They're just dying out. Whilst in this, they're dying out, but it's because of humans. Like, humans have had a direct impact. Humans hate elves. It's like racism in it, basically, towards elves, and you see that so much more in the books, and you feel sorry for the elves. I would like to see more of them. I know you do see them in a TV show, and stuff. But in the video games, I'd love to expand on that a bit more. You know, there's like elven lands you can be in a lot more, because I know they're kind of like in reservations, and then they enter into an alliance with Nilfgaard to basically refound Sintra as like the elven kingdom that it once was. I would like to see that. Yeah. What about you?
I would say like more like lore based, like, you know, the conjunction of the spheres.
Yeah.
Like if you could do like a game on how the witches were established, that would be like amazing. Like, because I remember playing like, funnily enough, like Dragon Age, the game takes from many different things. It takes stuff from The Witcher, Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones, but like they like fully explain like what happens in the game, which is basically that there's basically zombie type darkspawn that are going to take over the world, and then to prevent that from happening, they then created Grey Wardens using the zombies' blood to then darkspawn blood to then stop them from doing so. So kind of similar to how they made and created witches to kill monsters to keep people safe. Like if they could do something with that, because like it is an important part, like the conjunction of the spheres is a major incident within the whole Witcher universe.
So many monsters, and like, there's as you said, there's a difference between the normal monsters and then the sphere conjunction monsters.
And like if they could like base more on like the lore as well, I think hopefully one game which is away from The Witcher, and like maybe look at
the universe.
And even like maybe look at the continent on a wider scale.
Yeah, it'd be cool if you get to play as one of the monsters, like a ghoul, just a ghoul that just feasting on flesh on the battlefield. That's all you do. Kind of like that game about the cat Stray, but you're just like, yeah, that would be cool actually. Or you play as Ciri, or maybe even, as you say, away from the Witches, like something in Nilfgaard. That'd be a good way to expand.
Yeah, and then maybe like go on like, because one thing I do like about the author is that he can write intrigue very well. Like, what if you play as a Nilfgaardian agent? Like, that would be... Or Dijkstra, A Redanian agent under Dijkstra, or the rise of Dijkstra. That would actually be very cool video game.
He's a cool character, just reading about him in the books. He's so sly and always scheming for info.
Yes.
Yeah, it is cool. I think that's all we've got time for today. I mean, we actually do have more time, but because of the fire alarm thing, you know, our conversation about The Witcher was just too damn hot. Too damn hot. We still have to fight.
They had to shut it down.
Yeah, they tried to shut us down, but they couldn't stop us.
Oh my god.
That's right, folks. That's right. Well, lovely audience. It's been great having you here. I know it's been a bit strange and we're wearing funny clothes, but we can explain. We teleported. We're witches. No,
yes.
We're mages, whatever. But thank you so much for watching. You know, we are getting more popular than I thought. This is taking off more than I thought, and I'm so happy. And Josh, thank you so much just for being here with me for this, bro.
And then thank you, Morgan, as well. I think one of the things I do like about the podcast is that it's not work, it's actually a hobby, something that we both enjoy, and being able to talk about the stuff that we love for hours on end. And if not for the time slots and also the money spent on the time slots, we could talk about The Witcher or other things for hours on end non-stop.
It's such a good setting to do it, and having people come on board, like members of our fan base or audience or friends and family coming on, it's just a great passion to share and to have them on board. And it'd be great to have Jeffrey on and some more of our audience as well. You know, we've got other things on the cards. We've got Warhammer we want to do. We want to do some stuff to do with the new Dune movie that'll be coming out eventually. What else do we have on board?
So potentially looking into like Lord of the Rings themselves as well, separate from the Rings of Power.
That'd be good.
And then talk about something that you don't like, The Hobbit, that you hate with a passion.
I mean, I don't hate it with a passion. I just thought it was garbage. Similar feelings, I guess.
And then, as we've probably mentioned other episodes, like with Star Trek and stuff.
Yeah, that'd be
and
good.
Then maybe also one of the things that we did mention, like also Barbie as well. That's coming out. Maybe as April Fools has passed, but potentially as a joke episode to talk about that. And also we could even do like myths and legends, because you were just talking about, remember, it's about monsters. We could do like one on Dracula, one on Frankenstein, one on the Mummy, or even have like a whole episode where we just talk about it, because I think if you think about like some of the stories behind these things are amazing.
Yeah, that's true. and like history, we love talking about history.
Yes,
you might
yes.
have noticed that.
Yes,
audience,
yes.
that we like to digress.
We are maesters. We must have a history element there.
Yeah, exactly. We are learned, man. Are we not? But yeah, if you love our videos, then click the notification button so you can find out when our next one's coming on, or click the subscribe button to get that instantly sent to you. I feel like they do the same, the notification. and
Yes, they
subscribe
do.
button.
Yeah.
But subscribe would be nicer.
Yeah.
And if you got a bit of, spare cash you want to jingle around, we would love that. It costs us to book these studios, and we would love to try and expand, have more people on, run more podcast shows, really make Two Maces and something big. And our Overlord Jeffrey, the Pick Up the Mic Network, watch their videos too. That expands a bit out into academia and professionalism, whilst we just stick to the nerdy stuff.
Yes, yeah, the good stuff.
The good stuff, exactly. Well, that's all, folks. Thank you very much, and we will see you soon.
See you, folks.
Bye-bye.